Mecca. What are we going to do with the Hajj? What are we going to do with all the stones? You have the stone of the Kaaba, you have the black stone, you have the jamarat, you have also Marwa and Safa, these stones. You've got a problem, Muslims. If you don't believe me, watch and see exactly how difficult this is to try to, in any ways, to try to excuse. Huge problems historically and huge problems theologically. If that isn't enough, look and see where these stories are borrowed from. You're going to find out in just a minute.
Thank you, as always, for your commitment to watching this video series. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've learned from it. Hopefully you've shared information from it with others as well. And hopefully you are contributing now to your own communities and teaching others. Or we welcome you reaching out to us, myself and Dr. J. Smith, wherever you are, whomever you prefer, that we would either teach jointly, teach separately, via Zoom, in person, whatever the case might be. All that to say is that I'm hoping that all of the material provided to you is making sense. And if you're a Muslim person, hopefully by now you have left Islam and came to Jesus, because it's very clear that the book you follow is not perfect by any stretch of an imagination. Today, we are going to talk about rocks. And in Islam, rocks are a big deal. That's why it saddens me to say that there are many rock issues when it comes to Islam. And that's why Islam, as we know it, is not standing on a solid foundation, but rather it's a rocky foundation. With me here to explain all of this stuff that rocks, our dear brother, Dr. J. Smith.
I hope I rock too. Can you understand why I'm laughing? Because I love your idioms that you're using there.
Yeah.
Doesn't stand on a very big rock at all. It's really sad. But we are going to talk about rocks today, and it's really three rocks. We're going to talk about the rock, the Kaaba. We're going to talk about the rock, the black stone, and we're going to talk about the rocks that are thrown at the jamarats. Those are the three things. So all have to do. Now you know this because you've done it. You've been there.
Yeah.
You live real close to it. You used to go to the Kaaba. You used to circumambulate the Kaaba 7 times.
I can even smell the smell right now. Yeah.
What's the smell? I mean, is it sweet?
I mean,
it's
sour? Basically they put a lot of perfumes and a lot of expensive, a
lot of incense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to put this slide up here real quickly just to show you there's a real problem with the Kaaba here. In chapter 5, verse 97, in chapter 2, verse 125, in verse 127, chapter 3, 96 to 97, chapter 14, verse 37, and chapter 2, 22, all assume that Abraham built this Kaaba, that building right there that you can see up there on the upper right. Now, here's the problem, difficulty. Did Abraham ever live that far south? What did the Bible say? Well, he comes from the which we now know today as, since the 1800s, that is not up in southern Turkey. It's actually in Iraq, in southern Iraq. What is today southern Iraq? And we know that he came up through Haran, that's true, up to Paran and way up in the north. Then he came down and he ended up in what is today Israel and that part of the world. So he was 600,000 miles to 600 miles further north. We don't know of any reference for Abraham being that far south. So that's one historical anachronism right there. Even though the Quran says he's there, in chapter 21 specifically, he goes into the Kaaba and he destroys all the idols that are there. Huge problem there. That is absolutely wrong. He does not go into anything because he's nowhere near the Kaaba. But here's what's interesting. The Kaaba it's a square building made of rocks. It looks square. And Kaaba means square, doesn't it?
That's right. Yeah, I mean a cubical shape.
Cubical shape.
Yeah.
The same word is found in Hebrew. Kaaba is also cube in Hebrew.
Yeah.
Now, where was the cube in Judaism? You want to guess?
It's
actually in the temple.
In the temple.
It's the Holy of Holies.
Exactly. Muka'ab. I mean, that's the Arabic word for that.
And it is known as the Holy of Holies, which is in the temple.
Right.
That's the original Kaaba. Where was that cube? Where was that Kaaba?
Jerusalem.
And where specifically in Jerusalem?
In the Holy of Holies, inside the
Mount Moriah,
yeah,
which is where the Dome of the Rock is today. Isn't that fascinating?
Right.
And from Josephus's writings, in the 2nd century, he mentions that the Jews, when they went on pilgrimage, they would circumambulate around the Kaaba, there around in Mount Moriah, 7 times going counterclockwise. And the reason why is because they're following what happened in Jericho. God told Joshua to go 7 times counterclockwise. So this is in remembrance of what happened in Jericho. So there is the antecedents in Jerusalem for what we now see the Muslims doing today.
Yep.
What's fascinating is, don't just stop there. After you do that, you go to 2 other rocks. Remember what you do? They call them mountains, right? They're called Marwa and Safa. After you circumambulate 7 times, you go to 2 other rocks. And you've done it, haven't you?
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, I've done it many times. I mean, like I said, I mean, the minute we look at this, I can start smelling, the smell itself. I know the feel on the floor. I know the touch, how it feels. I even try to push people to get to the black stone, to touch the black stone, to wipe it with my hand, to kiss it, so yeah.
Okay, so you kiss the black stone.
Yeah.
Let's go to the slide. You can see this black stone there. If you look on the left side, there are 2 pictures of the black stone. Look on the little bit on the left. You can see that is actually 8 little pebbles.
Yeah, it's broken pieces that were glued together, technically.
And that's mostly tar. It used to be white. Now it's become black because so many millions of people have kissed it over the ages.
Well, actually, the claim is that it turned black because of sin. It's kind of interesting, brother. I mean, if you think about it, Jesus is the rock of our salvation. He took away our sin. Here is, I dare I say, Satan is competing with that plan. He have a rock now that turns black because of the sin of the world or the sin of the people. So it's acknowledging that people are sinful, but you do it yourself.
Fascinating, because that black stone does have a history.
Right.
That is actually the same black stone that Elagabalus stole and brought to Damascus in the 2nd century, and he is the Roman emperor who actually then gave credit and stipulated that this black stone has God's presence, and wherever this black stone goes, so does God's presence go, which suggests to me that's why it's in the Kaaba today. It's been broken up. It's been evidently there have been some back and forth, and in breaking it up, they only have the 8 pieces that were left of it. It's now in the eastern corner of the Kaaba. But what's fascinating to me, this is straight idolatry, isn't it? How can you have a stone forgiving your sins?
Exactly. I mean, that's the fascinating and the sad part at the same time. How many times you've heard that Islam came to fight idolatry, to purify things from idolatry, that Muhammad destroyed idols when he entered into Mecca, that the cross is a form of idolatry. And yet, what do Muslims do? They bow down to a rock 5 times a day. They go and circumvent a rock. They run between rocks. They touch a rock. They kiss a rock. They stone a rock, and the list can go on and on and on.
We haven't got to the other ones yet. We're still yet to get to them. But can you see, at the center, the holiest place in Islam is a black stone where they get their sins forgiven on the Kaaba itself. I have never seen a Muslim that can respond to that. They just usually change the subject. But you're right. After they circumambulate, then they go back and forth between 2 mountains, which turn out to be nothing more than rocks, 20 feet high, Marwa and Safa. Guess where that comes from? That also comes from Jerusalem as well.
Right.
Marwa is the Arabic word for Moriah, and Safa is the Arabic word for Scopus, Mount Scopus, on either side of the Kidron Valley. You have Marwa on this side, Scopus on the side. When the Jews would come to do their pilgrimage to Jerusalem, they would go down to the Kidron Valley and back up to Scopus, then come back, and they come to Moriah. So you can see this is nothing more than borrowing from an antecedent in Jerusalem. They're now recreated as a facsimile, because these are just rocks 20 feet high, not mountains. But then you talked about the jamarat. These are where they're taking 49 stones or 72 stones and they're throwing it at this tower, which was a tower until 1980. One tower, right? And back in 1980, if you asked your parents, and you ask them even today, if you ask them what was the reason of throwing it at that tower, because that was the devil. You're throwing it at the devil. Well, that got so problematic because so many people were getting hit by the stones, people were dying by the stones, that they had to then encase it into a large building and create 2 other towers. Now there are 3 jamarats, 4 levels up, huge big building, and now you go up on either level and now you throw stones so it doesn't hit anybody and it falls down and they can bring the stones back up again. So what's the new story? What's the new narrative for those 3 jamarats? Those are Abraham being seduced by Satan 3 times. The narrative has changed now suddenly since 1980. So in the last 40 years, the narrative has changed as the reason why they're stoning. If the narrative is changing even as we speak, why are we surprised that this doesn't get changed all the way through the centuries? Interesting, and that's happening in our lifetime. Amen. So that's another rock. You have this rock, the Kaaba. You have the black stone is a rock. Then you have the jamarat are a rock, and you have the Marwa and Safa, the 2 rocks that they run back and forth. They think that they're running back and forth to commemorate Hagar looking for water for Ishmael. And then you have the Zamzam well, which is a bunch of rocks in a circle that have made a well that's about 30 feet down. And fascinating, because if this was Hagar looking for water, if this really were to happen, what's she only doing 100 yards away from the Kaaba if she's way out in the desert? Looking for water, she just need to go to any local building. There were buildings all around there, and just knock on the door and ask for water. Obviously, this is nothing more than a facsimile. A facsimile of what? A facsimile of the Jerusalem story, the Jerusalem pilgrimage, the Jerusalem circumambulation, the 7 times around counterclockwise, and then, of course, the Jerusalem Marwa and Safa, the 2 mountains on either side of Kidron Valley.
Absolutely. What are the next problems that we will be talking about?
We're going to then looking at the Tower of Babel, and then I'm going to look at Alexander the Great, because we need to talk about these. I'm not sure if we're going to get them both into the next episode. We'll do it as we go, but we want to talk about another historical anachronism, and that is, what are we going to do with Pharaoh and the Tower of Babel in Haman?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, brother. Thank you, everyone. This is Al-Fadi, over and out. God bless. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, CIRA International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.